Something doesn't feel right.
Back for more?
Resident Evil 6 was released on October 2nd, 2012. The Microsoft Windows version was released on March 22nd, 2013.
Resident Evil 6.
As you begin Resident Evil 6, you are put into a scenario which is the prelude to the game. This part features a short but straight to the point tutorial. I really like how this tutorial was created. Not only is it helpful in teaching you how to play the game, but it also features a very strong opening to the game, which to me is one of the biggest things when it comes to games. In my opinion, you know, if a game has a strong opening that captures you, that's going to be the thing that makes you want to play the game more. And Resident Evil 6 definitely captures that. And I actually think that every Resident Evil is able to capture that, and I don't think anyone should take that away from this game, because I think the opening sequence in this game is very awesome. I really like how it's presented. You know, you actually feel like you don't have much supplies on you. You really feel like, you know, there's already a strong connection with the story to it. You're trying to figure out what's going on. Why are they in such a rut like this? You wonder what is it that like she's all messed up from, and what the hell happened to them. You want to know, you know, what happened, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And not only that, but when they're teaching you the tutorial, I like when games not only obviously tell you how to do the thing and not have to make you figure it out on your own, but they make the tutorial in a way that it's playable. It's not like they just tell you, you know, oh, these are the buttons and you can do it in whichever way you want. This game features a way that they're making it as part of the dramatic horror that they're trying to capture. So as you see, you know, when a zombie grabs you in this tutorial, you see that they tell you all, you know, this is what you have to do: shake the analog and then press R trigger, or, you know, R2, depending the system you're playing it on, to get this, you know, stab the zombie in the head. As opposed to, you know, you could do it whatever way you want. You don't have to do it this way, but you're able to. You know, this is just the buttons and combinations you could do to do these features. In this game, they actually tell you, you know, he's automatically aiming at the zombie and they want you to shoot him, and then followed by the zombie grabbing you and you doing the whole sequence of the countering. I really like that, because I don't think many games let you engage in the tutorial. I think that's, you know, something that more games should let you do. To me, that's always something very interesting, as far as an opening part of the game, as well as just the sequence. And as I said before, this whole tutorial part is very awesome. As you finish the prelude to Resident Evil 6, you are then able to choose any mode that you want in the menu. Now, at this point, you can play the Mercenaries, you can play Agent Hunt, or of course, what I did, and I'm sure most people probably go first to, is the campaign. In Leon's campaign, there are two playable characters. Obviously, Leon Scott Kennedy from Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4, making his third appearance in an official Resident Evil game, not including the Game Boy Color game, Resident Evil Gaiden. And he's followed by United States Secret Service agent Elena Harper. This is her first debut.
Don't let me do this.
The President Adam was just about to confess and come clean about the incident that happened in Raccoon City. The only problem was, he ironically became a zombie himself. If you're going into this campaign thinking that you'd be scared and say the old style of Resident Evil games, think again. This game is still pretty action-packed. Whether that action is bad or not, it's up to you, but I personally think it's a very great blend. It's definitely not, say, the horror, scary atmosphere of the mansion or the police station, but it's not, you know, fighting armies the way it is pretty much in Resident Evil 5's whole entire campaign. Even though the game still has this actiony side as the more modern Resident Evils have, there still has some really cool, creepy looking atmospheres, and still things that might jump out and scare you. Maybe if you haven't played too many horror games or watched too many horror movies, they might even creep you out. It depends. Even so, I still gotta say, I really like the way they capture some of the horror atmosphere, even if the game isn't really all that scary. On to Chris's campaign. Chris's campaign features more of that action-y styled gameplay that you're probably most likely familiar from Resident Evil 5. Chris, now becoming the captain of the BSAA, had went on a trip to Adonia in order to fight against the Joavo. Unfortunately, his entire team was wiped out except for Piers and himself. Having his entire team wiped out in front of him, Chris develops post-traumatic amnesia and then decides to start drinking his pain away. With the captain of the BSA, Chris Redfield, not basically being at his post, Piers Nivens decides to convince him and bring him back to finish his mission that he started to end bioterrorism. In Chris's campaign, you notice that the gameplay is more a mixture of Resident Evil 5 and I'd say action games such as Gears of War in the sense of the cover system. Now, in Resident Evil 6, playing with Chris and using Piers as well, it's more of a shooter, but at the same time, it has a slight mixture of horror into it in some parts of the game. Now, don't go thinking it's horror as in the way it is in Leon's campaign. The horror atmosphere that I basically described in this is very, very tiny parts of the game where it'll be something sort of similar to Resident Evil Revelations, basically saying that there's a part on a ship, and it's basically the creatures that you fight and kind of the atmosphere they give on that. For the most part, his campaign is just an action-y type of shooter. But it's not so much of a bad thing once you actually find out what the plot is, because the plot, I've got to say, surprised me. I actually really, really did enjoy Chris's campaign. But the thing is, I must say that I really do enjoy the atmosphere that is in Chris's campaign. I mean, it's one of those things that if you just see gameplay of, you're going to think it's a mindless shooter. But I really urge you to give Chris's campaign a chance, even if you don't like how the direction of Resident Evil is. I really do like how the story of it is. Jake Mueller is a mercenary of Adonia, and he is also the son of Albert Wesker, who is arguably the most popular villain in the Resident Evil series, who was in Resident Evil, Resident Evil Code Veronica X, and Resident Evil 5. Jake Mueller's partner in this game is none other than Sherry Birkin, making a return back from Resident Evil 2. This time she is an agent herself and is much older than we have last seen her in Resident Evil 2, and she is able to fight on her own. Agent Sherry Birkin is basically now in need of Jake Mueller because in his blood he has the antibodies of the C virus that can help save the world. Jake Mueller agrees to this, but only if he receives $50 million in return. Jake's campaign features something very unique and different to me, and I'm not sure if many people agree with me or many people actually think about this, is that his campaign is more on the action-y side, even more action-y than that of Chris Redfield's campaign, but he has a sort of different environments and exploration in his levels. What I basically mean to say is, in his levels, in his missions, he has parts where he has to collect different things and bring it to a certain area, basically mini objectives in one objective. And the thing about his campaign is it has some kind of different atmosphere that unless you play it and see for yourself, you're not really going to understand. But I think that that's something that the other campaigns don't have. His has a sense of exploration, fast-paced gameplay that basically has kind of a story that of Resident Evil 3, but more on the actiony side, where it's something chasing you, something coming after you, something trying to kill you, but this time instead of it being presented in a horror zombie-filled atmosphere, he also fights the Dravo just like Chris Redfield, but has this thing sort of similar to that of Nemesis that is in search of him and trying to capture him.
These nasty looking things.
I've got to say, this is a campaign that I wasn't too into myself when I first had played it. I found it kind of just filler and, just put in for the hell of it. But I've got to say, after playing it multiple times now, that I really do enjoy it. I really do think that, it definitely has some different blend of action and exploration, as I said before, but also just feels very different. It doesn't feel like Resident Evil, and I know that's a bad thing as far as it being a Resident Evil game, but as far as a new age modern action shooter, to me it does well, and I think the plot is, very well done. I think it fits into the other campaigns well, and I think that if it was missing in Resident Evil 6, I think there would be a chunk of the story missing, despite what probably most people think, that it was just put in, just to have more meat to it, so to speak. But I think that it definitely has a essential role to the story. Now on to the fourth and final campaign of Resident Evil 6, which is Ada Wong's campaign. In Ada's campaign, it was originally unlocked if you had completed the 3 previous campaigns, but since then there's been 2 patches, and in one of the patches they unlocked the ability to basically have Ada's campaign unlocked from the very beginning. I didn't really think that this was a great idea because, should someone want to play Ada's campaign first, I think that kind of ruins certain parts of the game that would seem like a bigger deal had you play the other 3 campaigns first. Sort of saying like if you were able to play separate ways in Resident Evil 4 first before you were able to play the full campaign of Resident Evil 4, I don't think it'd have as much of an effect as it should if you were to play the original 3 campaigns and then unlock that one, as opposed to just being able to play it from the start. In Ada's campaign, she arrives at a massive submarine in the northern Atlantic Ocean because she's informed that there's some information that'll interest her on board.
I suppose I could go introduce myself, but I don't want to fall behind schedule.
I really enjoy the fact that Ada's campaign in Resident Evil 6 is just like the way it was in Resident Evil 4, where it's behind the scenes of everything that's going on and also has a bit of different gameplay elements to it, such as sneaking, and it still has a bit of horror and has a bit of action. There's something about hers that feels very unique, as well as still feeling like you're playing Resident Evil 6, but it feels also at the same time like you're exploring new areas, you're exploring new elements as well in this game, and that's one of the things that I really like about Resident Evil 6, that each campaign features different elements, and while it may be the same gameplay, they're all very different in some ways. Ada has to fight zombies, Ada has to fight Dravo, and Ada's also on the run. There's a lot of things that you do in Ada's campaign that made me really excited to play it when I was playing it for the very first time. That I had just finished these 3 campaigns, and I'm saying, what more could you do? There was a lot already done to the game, and would it retain the horror that Leon's campaign had? Would it have the action that Chris and Jake's campaign had? And it did. It actually had both, but it also had, you know, some sort of puzzle solving elements that I really enjoyed, that felt more like the original Resident Evil games back then. And while it may not be as, I guess, annoying to solve if you didn't have a strategy guide or didn't play the game before, but some of them still kind of made you think. And I really didn't miss that element that wasn't in Resident Evil 5. There was no puzzles. I really liked the whole key thing, and having to actually think about how you're supposed to do the next move and whatnot. And Ada's campaign definitely has that, and I really enjoy that. And last but not least, you have the other modes such as the Mercenaries, Agent Hunt, and the ability to be able to customize your dog tags, watch cutscenes, and even get collectibles that are technically files and figurines, which I think are pretty awesome to bring back and do something extra. One of the things I like is being able to unlock things, and I'm really glad that they still retain that. I have to say that I find myself playing the Mercenaries in this game more than I've played Mercenaries in any other Resident Evil game. The Mercenaries in this game is just fantastic. It's fast, fluid, very fun to play single player and co-op. It's unlocked from the start, and it really helps you to probably get better in the game, boost your skills up. And I really like the level design. I think that this whole part is probably the best thing they did in Resident Evil 6 is the Mercenaries. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think it's fantastic, and I've played it myself more than 100 times. I absolutely think it's the most fantastic thing in this game. Well, I've pretty much discussed everything there is to say about Resident Evil 6. Now, is it a game that you should get? It's up to you entirely, but what I say is that if you do like the more modern Resident Evils, I definitely say you should try it. If you're a fan of shooters, if you're a fan of even games that have, just a horror factor in it, I'd say to still play this game. I think that despite it not being a old school feeling Resident Evil, and the fact that it didn't deliver on the horror that they made it seem like it was going to be when they first announced this game, I still think it's a very fantastic game. I think the gameplay mechanics are better. I think a lot of things that people had problems with, whether it be the camera angle and the quick time events and stuff like that, have been addressed, because there's an ability you can switch on for quick time events to automatically happen. I've even tested them out that I purposely failed a quick time event and yet it still passed. And also the camera angle, if people felt it was too close, you are able to adjust it now to your liking. So I think that a lot of things have been addressed, and I think people are judging it more on its, I guess, vanilla version if you don't include all the patches and whatnot. But I think this game has a lot of content. They try to appease to everybody, and I think that they did do just that. Whether it lived up to the hype and whatever, I don't think maybe it did, but I still think that the game was fantastic. I think the whole game should have really been Leon's campaign. If it would have been focused just on that horror environment and zombies, I think that this game would have gotten a lot less hate and whatnot. But I still think it's a fantastic game, and I definitely say you should try it. It's very cheap now compared to its release. It's about maybe $10 now, brand new. So I want to thank you guys for listening and watching my review. This is my first of many. I know this was long, but I really wanted to get all the key elements of this game in this review, and this game has quite a lot of content. So next reviews won't be as long. I just had to get everything in there. I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for watching.